Why is Midsommar, 2019, one of the scariest horror movies of our time? So, Midsommar, 2019, the Swedish title of the film, literally meaning summer solstice feast, is a very unique movie. It belongs to the so-called folk horror, a subgenre of horror that uses elements of folklore, folktales, and legends to construct the plot and convey suspense. Writer Adam Scoville, in his book Folk Horror, Hours Dreadful and Things Strange, outlines several fundamental features of horror films in the folk horror genre: isolation, A; landscape, B; and morality, C. A. The locations shown in such films must be separated from the outside world, or a culturally or nationally isolated group, community, sect, is shown. B. Because the locale is usually isolated, its landscape is special, unspoiled nature, or a forest with remnants of ancient sanctuaries. C. The isolated group living in a particular area has a specific morality, which seems to be anti-moral to everyone else. The most curious detail about the genre is that, according to Adam Scoville, the film can be both supernatural and realistic. The term folk horror is associated with Pierce Haggard's Blood on Satan's Claws, 1971. I personally have not seen the film, but sources note that it is one of the most iconic films of the genre. However, in the early 80s, there was a bit of a decline in the genre, and it wasn't until the 2010s that folk horror finally returned to its former glory. One of the perpetrators of the genre's return to its former greatness in modern times is Ari Aster, a young director who has declared that his film Solstice, 2019, is a folk horror film. So back to the film Midsommar, 2019. It is directed by Ari Aster. Ari Aster can be classified as one of the very new wave of directors of our time, along with, for example, Alex Garland, see the previous video about Ex Machina, Robert Mitchell, Jordan Peele. Midsommar, 2019, is Ari Aster's second film. His debut is another horror film, Reincarnation, 2018. In the process of making this post, I decided to reveal a little more about this debut, and realized it was coming to the level of a new post. In brief, it's a good movie for me personally, without being a fanatic, considered a masterpiece by many other viewers and critics in particular. But, if Reincarnation, 2018, shot, then Midsommar, 2019, as far as I'm concerned, blew up and got in the way of modern cinema, in particular the horror genre. Personally, I rewatched Midsommar, 2019, twice, even though I initially thought I would not do so, not because the movie is bad, but because it is crushing, heavy. Some dry facts about this movie. Box office, $47,863,365. Budget, $9 million. Plot. In a Swedish settlement cut off from the civilized world, unique ceremonies with a centuries-old tradition are held on this day. It is there that a group of young American anthropology students go, taking the girl of one of them with them. Soon after their arrival, however, the friends discover that the local rituals are far from harmless. Taken from Kinopoisk. Very concise and spoiler-free, in my opinion. So why is this movie one of the scariest horror movies of our time? As with other movies, it's a complex question. The movie is cool with the acting, for one. Hollywood's new star Florence Pugh perfectly captures all of the main character's experiences. She plays off the full range of emotions beautifully. You begin to care about her. She is the victim of an abusive relationship who is cheated on by her boyfriend. She has lost her family and is looking for a new one. Another actor, supporting actor Will Poulter, Part 3 of The Chronicles of Narnia, Running in the Maze, is also subjectively great. He performs his plot function so well, so infuriating to the viewer that he forms a literal hatred of himself in the viewer. The audio component of the picture is also excellent. I will point out that the sound theme of the movie copes perfectly with its task. It forms such an atmosphere of suspense, from which you cannot come away for a long time after watching this movie. Nevertheless, the main merit of Midsommar is the staging, which is complex and multifaceted. It has all the elements of folk horror mentioned above: isolation, A; landscape, B; and morality, C. Ari Aster was able to organize the set in such a way that the viewer gets to see an isolated and closed society from the world, and literally, the characters are trapped in a settlement and cannot get out. Here I would like to mention an interesting detail. When the camera shows the scene of a car pulling into a village, the camera makes a top-down turn. Everything turns upside down, as if the characters get into another world, into a parallel reality. it is difficult to explain, you have to watch. The landscape is also well shown, an untouched European forest. The moral, which is not clear to the viewer, is also impeccably revealed. Here, for example, when people reach the age of 72, they voluntarily take their own lives, which seems very immoral for the characters and the viewer, and quite normal for the inhabitants of the settlement. Separate from the three aforementioned components, some technical decisions play an important role in the production of the film. Among them, for example, is the fact that almost all the scenes of the film take place in the daytime and under a bright sun. This, I believe, leads to cognitive dissonance in the viewer and creates an additional level of suspense. Besides, it is horrifying that the viewer understands the hopelessness of the situation before the heroes and observes what is happening without any hope of a happy end. The cherry on the cake is also the fact that it is a slough burner. That is a special genre of horror, which frightens not with screamers, but with atmosphere, which, incidentally, was mentioned by the author of the post about Asian horror films, which also frighten not with screamers. In general, an unequivocal recommendation to watch.